Dunchbags, what's going on? It's Landon Remixes here, and it is time for my first review of the year, and today I'll be talking about the newest EP from Nitro Fun called Closure. Nitro Fun is the alias of the Mexican DJ and producer Gustavo Rongel, a man that I have a ton of love and respect for. I would even personally consider Gus a friend. We've had many a Facebook chat over the years, and I'd love to meet him in person someday. Despite this, and despite me admittedly being a pretty big fan of his music since roughly late 2013, I actually haven't really had a good opportunity to talk about Nitro Fun on this channel, mostly because the majority of this channel's content tends to be album and EP reviews, neither of which Nitro Fun has released since I've started listening to him. He did self-release a little 3-track EP called Power Up in early 2014, but that was a ways before I started doing EP and album reviews. And strangely enough, during his entire run with Monstercat, from his old school remix in late 2013 to his Cheat Codes VIP that he released just a couple weeks ago on the label, he never once had an EP released through Monstercat. And I'm not saying there's anything necessarily wrong with that, because Nitro Fun is simply not an EP kind of artist. His music is very much powered by the single, and at that, he's been very successful. In fact, every single one of his releases that he's done through Monstercat, with the exception of his 2 newest singles and Come With Me, his collaboration with Subtact, have surpassed 1 million plays on the platform, and even his song Cheat Codes happened to have passed 10 million plays recently and is one of Monstercat's 20 most popular songs on YouTube. Needless to say, Nitro Fun is a very well-loved name in the Monstercat community, and I mean, how could you not love him? Even as just a 15-year-old, when he had signed his very first contract with Monstercat, Gus had his mind set on innovation, kind of taking chiptune and electro house and smashing them together in a head-on collision. With Gus having the mind of an innovator, it is safe to say that his sound kind of changed with the winds over the years, and although his, for lack of a better name, electro chiptune sound kind of remained the center of his identity as an artist, it's generally the kind of sound that tended to be a little bit more popular from him. People were generally pretty supportive of him when he tended to go into other directions, though I'd say his biggest change as an artist didn't really come in the form of him trying out different genres like glitch hop or more melodic big room house. Rather, I'd say his biggest change progressively as an artist happened in later 2016, early 2017, as he transitioned into a style he calls POWERHOUSE, a genre that seems to take chiptune and electro house and kind of weave it together with a little bit of happy hardcore, maybe hardstyle and Jersey club. Although, to dumb it down, I'd say that it's essentially a more speedy and melodic version of the stuff that he was already doing for years. The single Checkpoint with Hyper Potions ended up being kind of a catalyst for this style. Gus thought the track sounded a little too slow at 128 BPM, so what else did he do other than crank it up to 140? And needless to say, that decision was a little bit hard for me to grasp at first, especially since I had been so dead set on 128 BPM electro for so many years. Regardless, looking back on it now, Checkpoint is actually one of my favorite songs Nitro Fun has done, and I'm really happy he made that decision, and in general the decision to kind of push forward this way into this powerhouse style. Monstercat, on the other hand, has seemingly not been so supportive of this style change, hence why his last original single on the label, Home, tended to take very little influence from this direction, and why this EP right here ended up landing on the Arcadium, a label that seems to be the Fat Rat and UMG's attempt to do something like NCS. And while I don't necessarily have any huge issues with this, it would be nice to see Monstercat kind of have a change of heart and be able to support this new direction he's taken. That being said, what label a body of work is released on has no effect at all on my opinion of the music itself, so let's get into talking about this EP. Closure is a 3-track EP that really takes 3 totally different directions, track after track after track. Despite me blabbering on and on about Powerhouse, there's actually only one song in this specific genre on this EP, and that's Go For It, a track that I pretty much fell in love with the first time I heard it when Nitro Fun premiered it on his NFES Volume 3 live mix. It's basically the poster child for this Nitro Fun powerhouse sound. It's very speedy, very happy and melodic. I'd say it's much more centered around its chords and the kind of happy vibe it's trying to push across rather than having some really complex EDM production. Gus is gonna hate me for this, but the track actually reminds me a lot of Alone by Marshmello, especially in terms of its chord progression. He doesn't like being compared to Marshmello, if you haven't figured that out. But hence, it also reminds me a lot of that Powerhouse drop from Home, which was one of my favorite portions of the track and makes this track really enjoyable too. It's kind of minimal. It's not really doing anything absolutely spectacular, but it would make a really good filler track in a set that uses music in this kind of tempo. The second track on the EP, Leaders, actually takes a very different direction that I was really pleased with in the end. The track was co-produced by Glacier and features Lone Moon, an artist who I've covered on this channel a number of different times. While there are some distinctly Nitro Fun elements in this song, especially in that intro with the little chiptune sounds, and then in the synth work I could also hear a lot of Nitro Fun in there as well, I really don't think he takes the front seat in terms of what's going on in this track. That whole first minute of the song is so Glacier when it comes to the production. It's got that kind of funky glitch hop beat backed up by these classical Japanese elements that we've seen in a number of Glacier tracks, most notably Nurture, his most recent release on Monstercat. I think it works especially nice with Lone Moon as an MC on this track. I think his flow is absolutely insane when his verse comes in at about a minute into the track. Although I think that flow is partially wasted on some not so great lyrics in this verse. Lone Moon raps about making bankroll, wearing expensive jewelry, and going major while he's practically begging people on Twitter to give him money. There's a little bit of a disconnect here. A little hypocrisy. Anyway, I'd probably say the biggest risk the track takes isn't in Lone Moon's lyricism, but rather the trap drop that kind of comes in during the last minute of the track. While I don't necessarily think there's anything terrible about this drop, I really don't think it fits with the rest of the track at all and the kind of feel it was going for. To me, it sounds more like a live tool that a DJ would use to kind of transition out of a track like Leaders into a more trappy sounding style. I wasn't personally a fan of how that rounded out, but that's not to say you guys won't like it. I guess that leaves one more song for me to talk about, the Trinergy collaboration Keygen, presumably no relation to the Martin Garrix track of the same name. This track is undoubtedly my favorite cut on the EP, which is a bit of a safe pick considering it probably takes the least risks out of any of the songs on the EP. In fact, I think it was just after my fourth or fifth listen of this song I realized just how much this track reminds me of Inception by Temanite, and I mean, that parallel kind of makes sense considering Nitro Fun seems to generally handle the off-drop sections of this track using that chiptune influence, and then Trinergy really goes hard in the drop with that big BROSTEP sound, which is definitely something Temanite would do in his solo music, although I most definitely wouldn't call the song a Temanite ripoff considering the lead sounds in the drop really don't sound anything like Temanite would use. In fact, I think that initial lead synth and bass combination is something that I haven't really heard before in dubstep, and I absolutely love the result of that sound. As always, I love the chiptune parts. This track over the other two tracks on the EP definitely make me feel more like I've been sucked into an NES cartridge. And I've got to say, one of my absolute favorite parts of the track is right before the drop, instead of having some stupid drop saying like there is in 90% of electronic music these days, it actually has like a little bit of a chiptune sound. It's just so good, and like I said, really the only bone I have to pick when it comes with this song is that it sounds a little bit too much out of Temanite's ballpark, but it also does enough to keep things fairly interesting and unique and keep me personally coming back to this track over and over and over. Although this EP might have 3 good tracks, they're all honestly pretty disconnected from each other, and therefore this EP is definitely lacking in the cohesion department. But like I said at the beginning of this review though, Nitro Fun is really a singles artist, and that's kind of reflected on this EP. But the fact that there is that disconnect, combined with the thought that none of these tracks are really my favorite works that Nitro Fun has put together to date, made this EP a little less than lovable. For closure, I am feeling a strong 6 out of 10. As always, if you guys haven't listened to this one, I do have the Spotify link down in the description so you can check it out for yourself. And if you have listened to this EP already, let me know what you think down in the comment section below. And if you'd like, let me know what your favorite track on it is. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this first EP review of the year, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.